In 2004, EA released the Urbz Sims in the City, a spin-off of the Sims franchise. Whereas The Sims was a suburban dream with white picket fences and green yards, the Urbz was skyscrapers and concrete. There were two versions of the game released, one on home consoles and one on the Game Boy Advance, and later the DS, both released in 2004. The handheld versions are supposed to be a sequel to the previous handheld game, The Sims Bustin' Out. In this video, I'll only be focusing on the handheld versions. The gameplay is pretty standard Sims gameplay. You have a Sim that you make, you choose their hair, skin color, clothes, and gender. Though in this one, instead of choosing your traits at the end of character creation, you take a test to determine your rep group, which is supposed to kind of set up your Sim as having the general personality as the group. But the only thing it changes in the game is who you have to befriend to get points with your group and what upgrade traits you have access to. The story, as might be expected, is pretty silly, and it only gets more silly as the game goes on. At the start of the game, you are a janitor in King Tower, the tallest building in Minneapolis, the city in which the game takes place. You are taking a break from your job of cleaning the bird shit off the windows when your supervisor, Chris, comes up to the roof to tell you that you have been fired. Shocked that Mr. King, the owner of the tower, would just up and fire you out of nowhere, you ask why Mr. King is firing you, just to find out that it's not Mr. King, but the new owner, a man by the name of Daddy Bugbucks, who Mr. King sold the tower to. But you tell Chris that you have nowhere to go, and beg them to let you stay for a little longer. Chris agrees and tells you to give them your bucket and squeegee when you're ready. This allows you to play the squeegee minigame as long as you want to get more money. When you do give them to Chris, they tell you they have brought a bed for you and that you can live in the unfinished penthouse. They also ask you to repair the busted water fountains and that you can fix the TV in the law office. Fixing the TV makes a holographic projection of Mr. King play that tells you that Bugbucks tricked him into selling King Tower, and that Daddy Bugbucks is planning to buy all of the city and turn it into an amusement park that charges an entrance fee to go anywhere in the city. After completing those tasks, when you talk to Chris, they tell you they've locked themselves in the building and they'll be stuck there and likely lose their job unless you break into Lily Gates' office and get their spare key. So you go to the janitor's closet and gain 1 point in mechanics. Then you go and pick the lock and get the key from Lily's desk. But just as you get it, Daddy Bugbucks and Lily Gates catch you. Then the police come and arrest you and take you to jail. Once in jail, Deputy Dan DeMann asks you some questions. The questions are related to one of Dan's unsolved cases, and are largely irrelevant to the story of the game. After he's done, you're free to hang out in the jail cell and get your needs up if they're low. Next, you have to befriend Dan, then they'll let you out of jail with a caveat that you are restricted to just the district of Urbania on probation. Dan says you should play the hoops minigame to get money to get a place to live. Once out of jail, you can run around and meet all the residents of Urbania, and they'll give you tasks to complete, mostly personal tasks, like finishing Cannonball Coleman's song and getting a shrunken head for Berkeley Claude. Once you complete all the tasks, you unlock the last set of tasks by talking to Grandma Hetty. They want to hold a political rally to protest what Daddy Bugbucks is doing, but you have to convince them that you are serious about stopping Bugbucks. To do so, you have to make 3 friends, raise 500 simoleons, and get a promotion in 2 jobs. Then after you do that, you hold a protest by the barricades blocking off the path to the new area. Daddy Bugbucks shows up and is forced to unlock it. In the sim quarter, the cycle starts again. Get quests, unlock minigames, make friends with everyone, and plot to stop Daddy Bugbucks. The plot advancing quest sees you disguise as the long-lost brother of the pirate sailor, Old Salty, who owns the Seaboat Casino, to try and convince them not to sell to Daddy Bugbucks. After you convince them, Daddy Bugbucks comes, grabs you by the legs, and throws you off the dock into the bayou. In the bayou, you meet the Bayou twins, Crawdad Clem and Bayou Boo, who are convinced that you are a vampire. In the bayou, you have to convince the twins that you are not a vampire and convince them to show you the way out. After convincing them to show you the way out, Boo leads you through the crypt, which puts you in the graveyard in the city. Once you get back to the city, you learn Bugbucks has enacted a law that makes it illegal to run, which up to this point has been our main mode of transportation. You fix that problem by writing a letter to the governor, who repeals that law. After a while of doing quests and making friends, you learn that Bugbucks has a time machine, and he plans to go back in time and to claim all the land that the city is on before anyone else can claim it. To stop him, you have to find people to make a time machine. Once you have the time machine, you go back in time. There, you meet Ephraim, the ghost from the graveyard, when they were alive. You tell them what's up, and they say they'll move the flag somewhere else and protect it. When you come back, Bugbucks learns that he only owns a tiny island in the middle of the river, and with that, you have stopped Daddy Bugbucks and saved the city. The Splicer Island quests are started by the Mr.King hologram that comes out of the TV close to the beginning of the game. But in order to advance the quests, you have to talk to the homeless man in the Urbania Park. You have to give them some food, and they will tell you that Sharona has a water taxi service to the island. You give Sharona 500 simoleons, and they reopen the service. On Splicer Island, you meet Futamaki, who tells you they can fix up the island. You have to give them the Splicer Island plans that are found by the dumpster near the university. Pick the lock to the gate and donate 5,000 simoleons to start the construction, and get some helpers in the form of monkeys that are left over on the island from the genetic experiments that were conducted on the island, hence why it is called Splicer Island. After you do all that, you have to wait 10 days for the island to be ready. After the island is ready, you need to get people to work on the island. You will need a smoothie operator for the smoothie shop, an entertainment manager, and a scientist to continue the genetic experiments. After that's done, you create a pet in the genetic lab. After you have a pet, you then learn that there's going to be a pet show on the island, and that you need 3 other competitors. Once you acquire the 3 competitors, you compete in the pet show and win. After the pet show, there's a commotion in the lab. We go there to find Berkeley Claude, who has made a mini clone of Daddy Bugbucks called Winky Weebucks. They trap us and go off to take over the city. We tell our pet that they're the only one who can save the city, and to go and talk to Old Salty. Old Salty tells us that only Pepper Pete can save the town, their brother, and he tells us to go talk to his parrot. Pepper Pete's parrot tells us that Pete needs a sail to get back to town, so we give the parrot a flag that we found after this pet show. We meet Pepper Pete at the carnival, and they stop Winky Weebucks and save the day. And the credits roll. Even though it is a GBA game, I think it looks good, even on an emulator. The pixel art is pretty crisp and expressive and reads well. Because it is a GBA game, some of the sounds are quite crunchy. Mostly the voice lines, or what few words we do get. The music throughout the game is a banger. I don't think there's a single track in this game that is bad. All of them are great. While the GBA and DS versions of the game are the same in gameplay and story, there are a number of differences. First and foremost, the Splicer Island quests. Other than that, the changes are pretty small. There are 7 new NPCs, which are part of the Splicer Island quests. There is one minigame from the base game that isn't there, which is the fan boat bumper car game by the casino is no longer there, which is good because that minigame was absolute hell. Honestly, this video is really just an excuse to play this game again and talk about it. When I was young, I very much enjoyed this game, even though I did get stuck for an embarrassing long amount of time attempting to figure out how to get a shrunken head. And I think this game is a massively underrated part of the Sims franchise, and I think it deserves more recognition than it got.